Park Tae-jin wiped sweat from his forehead as he climbed over the broken metal pieces scattered across the alien battlefield. The air smelled like burned plastic and something he could not name. His tool bag bounced against his hip with each step. He was supposed to fix a broken communication tower, not walk through a war zone. The planet Velthera looked like a giant had thrown rocks at it. Huge craters filled with purple water dotted the landscape. Strange trees with silver leaves grew in twisted shapes. In the distance, he could see the tall spires of an alien city, half of them broken and smoking. Tae-jin worked as an engineer on the human ship Soul's Promise. His job was simple: fix things when they broke. Usually that meant repairing air filters or food machines. Today, Captain Lee Dongwoo had sent him to fix a radio tower that helped humans talk to the alien Kethvar people. The Kethvar were at war with creatures called the Drextai. Tae-jin had seen pictures of both species. The Kethvar looked like tall humans made of living crystal. They had smooth, clear skin that sparkled in the light. Most of them had metal parts attached to their bodies, arms, legs, or eyes that were part machine, part alive. The Drextai were different. They looked like giant insects with too many teeth. They destroyed everything they touched and ate anything that moved. The war had been going on for many years, and the Kethvar were losing. As Tae-jin walked toward the broken radio tower, he heard a strange sound. It was like metal scraping against stone, mixed with something that might have been crying. He stopped and listened carefully. The sound came from behind a pile of twisted metal that used to be a building. Tae-jin knew he should ignore the sound and finish his job. Captain Lee had been very clear about that. Fix the radio and come back. Do not get involved in their war. But Tae-jin had always been curious about how things worked, especially broken things. He climbed over the metal pile and found something that made him stop breathing for a moment. A Kethvar warrior lay on the ground, his crystal skin cracked and dark. Metal parts that should have been smooth and shining were bent and sparking. The warrior's legs did not move at all. A pool of blue liquid spread around his body. The warrior's eyes opened when he heard Tae-jin approach. They were the color of deep ocean water, but now they looked tired and full of pain. He said something in his own language, words that sounded like wind blowing through broken glass. Tae-jin did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. The warrior was dying. The Kethvar tried to lift his arm, but the metal pieces attached to it only sparked and made clicking sounds. Tae-jin could see that the warrior had been very strong once. His body was built like a soldier, with muscles that showed even through his crystal skin. The metal parts were not just decorations. They were part of him, grown into his body like extra organs. But now everything was broken. Tae-jin knelt down beside the warrior. He had studied some Kethvar language during the trip to their planet, but he only knew basic words. He tried to speak slowly and clearly. "I am human, I want to help." The warrior's eyes widened with surprise. He spoke again, and this time, Tae-jin caught a few words he knew. The warrior was saying that help was impossible. His body was too damaged. Even the best Kethvar doctors had given up on him. Tae-jin pulled out a small device from his tool bag. It was a scanner that could look inside machines and see what was broken. He had built it himself using parts from old computers. The device was not fancy, but it worked well. He pointed the scanner at the warrior's chest, where most of the metal parts connected to his heart. The screen showed a mess of broken wires, cracked power cells, and systems that were fighting against each other instead of working together. The warrior watched Tae-jin with growing interest. He seemed surprised that a human would even try to understand Kethvar technology. Most aliens thought humans were too simple to work with advanced machines. Tae-jin studied the scanner readings for several minutes. The damage was bad, but he had seen worse problems in the ship's engines. The real issue was not that the parts were broken. It was that they were broken in a very specific way that made them impossible to fix using normal methods. "Your people tried to fix you?" Tae-jin asked. The warrior nodded slowly. He explained, in broken human words, that the best engineers had worked on him for days. They had the right tools and the right knowledge. But Kethvar technology was built to work perfectly or not at all. When too many things broke at once, their perfect systems could not handle the chaos. Tae-jin smiled. Chaos was something humans understood very well. He looked at his watch. Captain Lee expected him back in 2 hours. The radio tower would take 30 minutes to fix. That left him 90 minutes to figure out if he could help this dying warrior. It was a crazy idea. He was just a human engineer who fixed air filters and food machines. The warrior was built with technology that was hundreds of years more advanced than anything humans had. But Tae-jin had learned something important during his years of fixing broken things. Sometimes the best solution was not the most advanced one. The warrior grabbed Tae-jin's arm with his good hand. His crystal fingers were surprisingly warm. "Name?" the warrior asked in careful human words. "Park Tae-jin." "I am Veltek." The warrior's voice was getting weaker. "Why do you want to help me?" Tae-jin thought about the question. He could say it was because helping others was the right thing to do. He could say it was because humans and Kethvar were allies. But the real reason was simpler. "Because you are broken, and I fix broken things." Veltek made a sound that might have been laughing or crying. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "My people say I cannot be fixed." Tae-jin stood up and shouldered his tool bag. He looked down at the dying warrior and made a decision that would change both of their lives. "Your people do not know how humans fix things." Tae-jin worked through the night in the hidden maintenance bay of the Soul's Promise. The room was small and cramped, filled with spare parts and half-finished projects. Most importantly, it was far from Captain Lee's office and the main corridors, where other crew members walked. Veltek lay on a work table that Tae-jin had covered with soft blankets. The alien warrior had been unconscious when Tae-jin carried him to the ship. Moving him had been difficult. Veltek was much heavier than he looked, and the metal parts of his body made strange noises with every step. Dr. Kim So-ra sat beside the table, studying readings from her medical scanner. She was the ship's expert on alien biology, and she had agreed to help Tae-jin even though it was against Captain Lee's orders. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and her glasses reflected the blue light from Veltek's crystal skin. "This is incredible," So-ra whispered. "His organic parts and the mechanical parts are completely integrated. I have never seen anything like it." Tae-jin nodded as he carefully removed a damaged panel from Veltek's chest. Inside, he could see a maze of wires, tubes, and glowing crystals. Everything was connected in ways that seemed impossible. The warrior's heart pumped blue blood through tubes that also carried electrical signals. His lungs processed air while also cooling computer processors. "The problem is here," Tae-jin said, pointing to a cluster of burnt circuits. "When these got damaged, they started sending wrong signals to everything else. It is like a computer virus, but in his body." So-ra leaned closer to look. Why could the Kethvar not fix it? Tae-jin had been thinking about this question all day. He had studied the diagnostic reports that Veltek's people had given him. Their analysis was perfect, their understanding of the damage was complete, and their repair plans were flawless. That was exactly the problem. "They only have one way to fix things," Tae-jin explained. "Replace the broken part with an exact copy. But look at this damage. It is spread through too many systems. They would have to replace half of his body." So-ra frowned. "So what do you plan to do instead?" Tae-jin grinned and pulled out a roll of silver tape from his tool bag. "I am going to jury-rig it." For the next 4 hours, Tae-jin did things that would have horrified any Kethvar engineer. Instead of replacing the burnt circuits, he bypassed them using wires from a coffee machine. When a power coupling would not fit properly, he wrapped it with electrical tape and cable ties. He reprogrammed alien software using coding tricks he had learned from fixing old human computers. The most important change was something he called an adaptive interface. The Kethvar technology was designed to work perfectly all the time, but Veltek's organic parts were living tissue that changed and grew. The perfect technology could not adapt when his body changed, which caused the systems to fight against each other. Tae-jin's solution was inspired by the way human computers worked. Instead of demanding perfection, he built interfaces that could learn and adjust. When Velthek's heart beat faster, the power systems would automatically provide more energy. When his muscles tensed, the mechanical supports would flex to match. "You are using duct tape on technology that is centuries ahead of us," Sora said, watching Tae-Jin work. "Duct tape fixes everything," Tae-Jin replied. "Even alien cyborgs." The work was slow and careful. Every time Tae-Jin connected a new wire or adjusted a setting, he had to test it to make sure he was not making things worse. Velthek remained unconscious, but his vital signs slowly became stronger and more stable. Just as the sun was rising outside the ship, Warrant Officer Choi, Minho, entered the maintenance bay. He was a serious man who followed rules and reported problems to Captain Lee. When he saw Velthek on the work table, his face turned red with anger. "What is this?" Minho demanded. "Tae-Jin, you were ordered to fix a radio tower, not bring alien soldiers onto our ship." Tae-Jin did not stop working. He was in the middle of connecting a particularly delicate circuit, and any mistake could undo hours of progress. "I am helping someone who needed help," Tae-Jin said calmly. "This is against direct orders. I should report this immediately." Sora stood up and faced Minho. "If you report this, you will kill him. Tae-Jin is the only person who can fix what is wrong with Velthek." Minho looked at the alien warrior, then at the strange collection of human and alien technology spread across the work table. "This is madness. You are playing with forces you do not understand." "Maybe," Tae-Jin admitted, "but it is working." To prove his point, Tae-Jin activated a test sequence. Velthek's mechanical systems hummed to life for the first time in days. The lights in his chest panel glowed steady and bright instead of flickering weakly. His breathing became deeper and more regular. Minho stared in amazement. "How is this possible?" "Human engineering," Tae-Jin said proudly. "We may not have the most advanced technology, but we know how to make things work with whatever we have." Before Minho could respond, Velthek's eyes opened. The alien warrior looked around the room with confusion, then tried to sit up. His movements were shaky but much stronger than before. "Where am I?" Velthek asked in careful human words. "You are safe," Sora said gently. "Tae-Jin has been working to repair your systems." Velthek looked down at his chest, where human cables and alien circuits were connected with tape and improvised brackets. His expression showed a mixture of horror and wonder. "This should not work," he said slowly. Tae-Jin helped him sit up fully. "But it does work. Can you feel the difference?" Velthek moved his arms experimentally. The mechanical parts responded, smoothly, without the jerky motions and sparking that had plagued him before. He tried to stand, and though his legs were still weak, they supported his weight. "It is like my body and my machines are finally working together instead of fighting," Velthek said with amazement. Minho watched this display with growing alarm. "I have to report this to Captain Lee. This could affect our diplomatic mission as—" He turned to leave. Velthek spoke up. "Wait. Please. Let me prove that this human's work has value. Give me 1 day to show what I can do." Minho hesitated at the door. "1 day. Then I make my report." The attack came just after sunset. Tae-Jin was showing Velthek how to adjust the adaptive interfaces when alarms started screaming throughout the human diplomatic compound. Red lights flashed in the corridors as automated voices announced, "Code, red, hostile contact." "Drextai raiders," Velthek said, his crystal skin darkening with worry. "They must have detected your ship." Through the window, Tae-Jin could see dark shapes moving between the buildings outside. The Drextai looked exactly like the pictures he had studied. Giant insect creatures with razor-sharp claws and too many teeth. They moved with frightening speed, cutting through the compound's outer defenses like paper. Captain Lee's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "All crew to emergency stations. Prepare for evacuation protocols." Velthek stood up from the work table where he had been resting. His movements were smooth and confident, completely different from the broken warrior Tae-Jin had found yesterday. The human repairs had done more than just fix his damaged systems. They had made him better than he was before. I can help defend your people, Veltek said. Tae-Jin shook his head. You just got back on your feet. You should rest. My friend, Veltek said with a slight smile, I have been resting for too long. Before Tae-Jin could argue, Veltek was moving toward the exit. His steps were purposeful and strong. The mechanical parts of his body hummed with quiet efficiency, perfectly synchronized with his organic movements. Outside the ship, chaos had erupted. Human security guards were firing their weapons at the Drextai raiders, but their bullets seemed to bounce off the creature's thick armor. The aliens moved like deadly dancers, avoiding most attacks while striking back with devastating force. One group of raiders had cornered Dr. Kim So-ra and 3 other scientists near the communication building. The Drextai circled them slowly, making clicking sounds that might have been laughter. Their leader was massive, with scars covering his insect face and metal spikes driven through his shell. Veltek appeared between the scientists and the raiders, so quickly that no one saw him move. His crystal skin reflected the compound's emergency lights, making him look like a living statue made of starlight. The Drextai leader hissed something in his own language. Veltek responded in the same tongue, his voice calm and steady. Tae-Jin could not understand the words, but the meaning was clear. The aliens were threatening his friends, and Veltek was not going to allow that. The first raider attacked with movements too fast for human eyes to follow. But Veltek was faster. His arm moved in a blur, catching the creature's claws and redirecting the attack into the ground. His other hand struck the raider's chest with enough force to send the creature flying 20 feet backward. The other, Drextai, charged together, thinking that numbers would give them an advantage. They were wrong. Veltek moved like water flowing around rocks. Every attack missed him by inches, while his counterattacks landed with perfect precision. His mechanical systems provided strength and speed, while his organic parts gave him balance and intuition. The human adaptive interfaces allowed both parts to work together in ways that amazed even Veltek himself. Within minutes, all 6 raiders were either unconscious or fleeing back into the darkness. Veltek stood in the center of the courtyard, not even breathing hard. His system showed no signs of strain or overheating. Dr. So-ra ran to him with excitement. That was incredible. How did you move so fast? The human modifications, Veltek explained. Before, my mechanical parts would overheat if I pushed them too hard. My organic parts would get tired if I fought too long. But now, they support each other. When one system needs help, the other compensates automatically. Captain Lee arrived with a squad of security guards ready to continue the fight. He stopped in surprise when he saw the unconscious Drextai scattered around the courtyard. What happened here? The captain demanded. Veltek saved us, So-ra said. The raiders had us trapped, but he defeated them all. Captain Lee looked at the alien warrior with new respect. I thought you were injured. Our reports said you could not even stand. Your engineer fixed me, Veltek said simply. He gave me capabilities I never had before. Before Captain Lee could respond, a new group arrived at the compound. These were Kethvar soldiers led by a tall female warrior with silver markings on her crystal skin. She moved with the confidence of someone used to commanding others. I am War Commander Zephra, she announced. We detected the Drextai attack and came to assist. She stopped when she saw Veltek. Veltek? But you were declared beyond repair. How are you standing? Veltek gestured toward Tae-Jin, who had just arrived with his tool bag. This human engineer accomplished what our best doctors could not. Zephra studied Tae-Jin with intense curiosity. You repaired him? With what technology? Human technology, Tae-Jin said modestly. And some tape. The Kethvar commander's expression showed disbelief. Impossible. Our analysis showed that his damage was too extensive for any repair. Your analysis was correct, Tae-Jin admitted. But you were trying to make him exactly like he was before. I made him into something new. To demonstrate, Veltek performed a series of movements that would have been impossible for any normal Kethvar warrior. He moved from walking to running to jumping in one fluid motion. with his mechanical and organic parts working in perfect harmony. Zephyra watched in amazement. His efficiency ratings are higher than our best warriors. How is this possible? Human engineering is different from Kethvar engineering, Dr. Sora explained. We design things to adapt and improve, not just to work perfectly. Captain Lee finally found his voice. Taejin, you did this without authorization. You could face serious disciplinary action. Actually, Zephyra interrupted, he could face serious gratitude from the Kethvar High Command. We have hundreds of wounded warriors who were declared beyond repair. If this human method can help them. She turned to Taejin with an expression of desperate hope. Would you be willing to share your techniques with our medical teams? Taejin looked at Velthek, who nodded encouragingly. If it helps end the war and saves lives, yes. Then we have much to discuss, Zephyra said. The High Command will want to meet you immediately. As the group prepared to leave for the Kethvar capital, City Velthek approached Taejin privately. My friend, you have given me more than just repair. You have given me hope. I would like to request permission to serve alongside human forces, to learn more about your methods. Taejin smiled. I think that can be arranged. We could use someone who understands both technologies. Then let us see how much more we can accomplish together, Velthek said. I have a feeling this is just the beginning. The joint workshop buzzed with activity day and night. Taejin had converted an entire hangar in the Kethvar capital into a repair facility, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human engineers worked alongside Kethvar technicians, sharing tools and ideas that their species had never tried to combine before. Technician Yu Hansol was Taejin's brightest student. She was only 22 years old, but she understood the adaptive interface technology better than engineers with decades of experience. She had taken Taejin's basic concept and improved it in ways that amazed even him. Look at this, Hansol said excitedly, showing Taejin her latest creation. I call it a learning matrix. The interface does not just adapt to changes, it learns from them and predicts what the warrior will need next. On the work table, a Kethvar warrior named Thekval was testing the new system. His damaged leg had been repaired using Hansol's enhanced design. As he walked, the mechanical components adjusted not just to his current movements, but to what his body was preparing to do next. It is like the machine can read my thoughts, Thekval said with wonder. When I think about jumping, it strengthens my legs before I even begin to move. Taejin smiled proudly. You have surpassed the teacher, Hansol. This is brilliant work. The workshop had already repaired over 50 Kethvar warriors who had been written off as hopeless cases. Each one returned to the battlefield stronger and more capable than before. The Drextai, who had grown used to fighting predictable Kethvar tactics, found themselves facing opponents who moved and fought in completely new ways. Velthek entered the workshop carrying reports from the latest battle. His own modifications had continued to evolve over the past month. Taejin had given him permission to upgrade himself as needed, and the results were impressive. His crystal skin now had patterns of light that flowed through it when he moved, and his mechanical parts had grown more elegant and efficient. The eastern front is secure, Velthek announced. The Drextai retreated after losing half their attack force. They cannot adapt to our new capabilities. How many warriors fought with human modifications? Taejin asked. 37. They faced over 200 Drextai raiders. Velthek's expression showed satisfaction. The enemy expected us to fight, like traditional Kethvar. Instead, we improvised, adapted, and overcame. The success had not come without challenges. Elder scientist Kavresh represented a growing faction of Kethvar who believed that human influence was corrupting their technological purity. He arrived at the workshop that afternoon with a group of traditional engineers. This must stop, Kavresh declared, his crystal skin dark with anger. You are turning our warriors into mongrels, mixing our perfect technology with primitive human methods. Taejin looked up from the power cell he was modifying. The warriors who return from battle seem happy with the results. Results are not everything, Kavresh said coldly. Purity of purpose, elegance of design, perfection of execution. These are the values that define Kethvar civilization. And how well have those values worked against the Drextai? Hansol asked pointedly. Before we started helping, your people were losing this war. Kavresh turned his attention to the young human woman. You dare question thousands of years of Kethavar advancement? I question any approach that values perfection over effectiveness, Hansol replied calmly. A perfect system that fails is still a failure. The argument was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Park Young-sik, Tae-jin's older brother. Young-sik commanded the human military advisors on Velthara, and he had been growing increasingly concerned about the pace of technological sharing. Tae-jin, we need to talk, Young-sik said seriously. Some people in Earth Command are worried about what you are doing here. What do you mean? Tae-jin asked. You are giving alien technology to humans and human technology to aliens. What happens when this war ends? What happens when these enhanced Kethvar decide they do not need human friendship anymore? Velthek stepped forward. Commander Park, with respect, your concerns are based on fear rather than evidence. The human-Kethvar partnership has made both our species stronger. Young-sik looked at Velthek skeptically. Today you are grateful, but you are becoming more powerful every day. Power changes people. The tension in the room was broken by an urgent communication from War Commander Zephyra. Her image appeared on the workshop's main screen, her crystal skin flashing with emergency colors. All units priority alert. Long-range sensors have detected a massive Drextai fleet approaching the capital. This is not a raiding force. This is a full invasion army. They have ships we have never seen before, technology that appears to be ancient but extremely powerful. Tae-jin felt his heart sink. How long until they arrive? 6 hours, Zephyr replied. All repaired warriors are being called to defend the city. This may be our final battle. Kavresh looked triumphant. You see, your improvised repairs and mixed technologies have failed when faced with a real challenge. The battle has not been fought yet, Velthek said quietly. But I agree that this will be the ultimate test. As the workshop prepared for war, Hansol approached Tae-jin with a radical proposal. I have been working on something new. A complete fusion system that would allow human and Kethvar technologies to integrate at the deepest level. But it is untested and dangerous. What kind of dangerous? Tae-jin asked. The human and alien systems would become so integrated that they could not be separated. The warrior would become something entirely new, not human, not Kethvar, but something between them. Velthek overheard the conversation. I volunteer to test it. Velthek, this could kill you, Tae-jin warned. My friend, without this upgrade, the invasion fleet will kill all of us anyway. At least this way I have a chance to make a difference. Tae-jin looked around the workshop at the faces of humans and Kethvar, who had learned to work together despite their differences. Young-sik was wrong about one thing. Power had changed Velthek, but it had changed him for the better. The alien warrior had become not just stronger, but more compassionate and wise. All right, Tae-jin said finally. Let us see what a true fusion of our technologies can create. As alarms began to sound across the city, announcing the approaching invasion, Tae-jin and Hansol began the most ambitious engineering project of their lives. They were not just trying to repair a warrior, they were trying to create an entirely new form of life that could save both their species. The Drextai invasion fleet filled the sky like a swarm of deadly insects. Their ships were unlike anything the Kethvar had faced before, ancient designs covered in organic armor that pulsed like living tissue. The largest vessel was the size of a small moon, its surface crawling with weapons that looked like they had grown rather than been built. Tae-jin worked frantically to complete Velthek's fusion upgrade as explosions shook the capital city. The process had taken 4 hours, and Hansol's warning about danger had proven accurate. Twice Velthek's vital signs had dropped to almost nothing as human and alien systems fought for control of his body. Fusion at 95%, Hansol reported, sweat dripping from her forehead. His organic and mechanical parts are becoming a single integrated system. Velthek lay unconscious on the table, his crystal skin now shot through with patterns of light, that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The mechanical parts were no longer separate attachments. They had grown into his body like new organs, while his organic tissue had developed metallic veins that carried both blood and electrical signals. "Will he survive?" Dr. Kim So-ra asked, monitoring his brain activity. "I do not know," Tae-jin admitted. "We are creating something that has never existed before." Outside, the battle was going badly. Traditional Kethvar forces and human-enhanced warriors fought side by side. But the Drextai had brought weapons that seemed to counter every advantage the Allies had gained. Worse, their ships were deploying massive biomechanical creatures that walked through the city like living siege engines. War Commander Zephra's voice crackled through the communication system. "All forces fall back to the inner city. We cannot hold the outer defenses." At that moment, Veltek's eyes opened. But they were different now. Instead of solid blue, they swirled with patterns of light that seemed to contain entire galaxies. When he sat up, his movements were fluid and graceful in ways that seemed almost magical. "How do you feel?" Tae-jin asked. Veltek considered the question carefully. "I feel complete. For the first time in my life, every part of me is working toward the same goal." He looked at his hands, watching light flow through the crystal and metal like liquid starlight. "I am no longer Kethvar or machine. I am something new." The building shook as another explosion rocked the city. Through the window, they could see the largest Drextai bioship descending toward the capital. It was disgorging smaller creatures that looked like walking nightmares. Part insect, part machine, part something that defied description. "I have to go," Veltek said, standing with easy grace. "You just went through major surgery," So-ra protested. "You need time to recover." Veltek smiled, and his whole face seemed to glow from within. "My friend, I have never felt stronger. But more importantly, I finally understand what Tae-jin has been trying to teach us. The greatest strength comes not from perfection, but from the ability to adapt and grow." He left the workshop and headed toward the sounds of battle. Tae-jin and the others followed, wanting to see what their creation could accomplish. The center of the city had become a war zone. Kethvar warriors and human soldiers fought desperately against waves of Drextai attackers. But the real threat was the massive biomechanical creature that had emerged from the largest enemy ship. It stood over 100 feet tall, with armor that seemed to heal itself and weapons that fired beams of pure destruction. This was the War Prime, the ultimate weapon of the Drextai. It had destroyed dozens of worlds, and now it was carving a path of devastation toward the capital's heart. Veltek walked calmly through the chaos of battle. Enemy attacks seemed to slide past him harmlessly, while friendly forces instinctively moved to support his advance. His new fusion systems were not just giving him enhanced abilities. They were allowing him to coordinate with other warriors in ways that bordered on telepathic. When he reached the War Prime, the massive creature turned its attention to him. It spoke in a voice like grinding stone, challenging him to single combat in the ancient tradition of Drextai warfare. Veltek accepted. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The War Prime attacked with the fury of a living apocalypse, its weapons tearing chunks from buildings and melting the ground where they struck. But Veltek was no longer fighting like a traditional warrior. Instead of meeting force with force, he flowed around the attacks like water. When the War Prime's beam weapons fired, Veltek was already moving to where they were not. When the creature's massive claws struck, they found only empty air. But this was not just evasion, it was adaptation. With each attack, Veltek learned something new about his opponent. His fusion systems analyzed the War Prime's movements, predicted its patterns, and adjusted his responses accordingly. Then Veltek began to do something that no warrior in Kethvar history had ever attempted. He modified his own body during combat. As the fight progressed, his arms grew longer to extend his reach. His skin became harder to resist the creature's claws. His legs developed new joints that allowed him to move in impossible directions. "He is evolving in real time," Hansol whispered in amazement. The War Prime, for the first time in its long existence, began to show signs of confusion. It had been built to fight against static opponents who used predictable tactics. But Veltec was becoming something new with every passing moment. The end came when Veltec made the ultimate adaptation. Instead of trying to destroy the War Prime, he began to understand it. His fusion systems reached out and connected with the creature's biomechanical networks, not to control them, but to communicate with them. What he found inside the War Prime's mind changed everything. The creature was not just a weapon, it was a prison. Inside its mechanical shell was the consciousness of a Drextai warrior who had been trapped and tortured for centuries, forced to destroy worlds against his will. Veltec did not defeat the War Prime. He freed it. The massive creature stopped attacking and stood perfectly still for a moment. Then it spoke in a voice filled with gratitude and pain. With its dying breath, it sent a signal to the Drextai fleet, a signal that told them the truth about what their leaders had done to their greatest warrior. The invasion fleet retreated in horror and shame, leaving the skies of Velthera clear for the first time in years. In the aftermath of victory, representatives from dozens of species came to study what had happened. They found a new alliance between humans and Kethvar that was already spreading to other worlds. More importantly, they found proof that evolution and adaptation were more powerful than any weapon. Tai Jin stood in his new laboratory, watching. Human and alien engineers worked together on projects that neither species could have imagined alone. Han Sol had been promoted to Chief Innovation Officer, while Dr. Sora led the new Institute for Interspecies Biology. Ambassador Li Na Young was negotiating treaties with 17 different civilizations, all of whom wanted to learn about adaptive technology. Commander Park Young-sik had become a convert to the fusion approach, leading mixed human-alien military units that were revolutionizing peacekeeping across the galaxy. Velthec entered the laboratory, his evolved form now, stable and magnificent. He had become the first of a new kind of being, not human, not Kethvar, but something that represented the best of both species. The Council of Worlds has approved our proposal, Veltec announced. The Human Kethvar Innovation Alliance is now officially recognized as a galactic institution. Taejin smiled. So what is our first official project? The Andorian system has a problem with their quantum computers. They say it is impossible to fix. Velthec's eyes sparkled with the same light Taejin had seen when he first found the broken warrior. I told them we specialize in impossible problems. As they prepared for their next adventure, Taejin reflected on how much had changed since that day on the battlefield. He had set out to fix one broken alien and ended up helping create a new form of life that would change the galaxy forever. Sometimes the best solutions really were the simplest ones. Help others, share knowledge, and never be afraid to try something new. Even if it meant using duct tape on alien technology, the universe was vast and full of problems that needed solving. But Taejin had learned that there was no such thing as unfixable. You just had to be willing to think outside the box and work together. And sometimes the most broken things could become the most beautiful when you gave them a chance to grow into something new.